Hey gardener, you're listening to the Community Garden Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor. In this space, we'll dig into the dirt with local gardeners of all skill levels to share tips, tricks, and stories from our gardening adventures. Let's get growing. Hey gardeners, it's Taylor from Equal Ground, back with another episode for you. I'm currently recording in my little dungeon office and it's dark outside. It's like 9 p.m. and I don't think I've ever done any podcast work at night, and it's weird to be like listening to and talking about nature when it's this dark out. Okay, this week's episode is a little bit unique. We haven't done something like this before. So back in November, I went to Tollgate Tech, which is a technical skills high school here in Brantford, to meet up with a team of students that are taking the Green Industries program with a teacher that we've been doing some great work with. So I went into their class. They also have a wonderful greenhouse. So we actually set up shop in their greenhouse, and many of the students came and chatted with me about environmental issues that were important to them, things that were discussed in class. So, well, yes, horticulture and gardening is touched on in this episode. We also talk about many other things, including increasing positive environmental impact on communities. We talked about endangered tree species. We also chatted about things like ash borers and the current issues facing certain plants right now. We talked about food forests and, of course, community gardens. We talked about best practices for foraging. There was lots of foraging talk. We talked about how to reduce your environmental impact as a consumer. So there are like tons of topics. Lots of mushroom talk. So a lot of the students picked things that were, within their green industries realm and spoke about the things that were important to them. So this Green Industries program is offered at a couple of the high schools within the district here, and this includes sectors such as landscape design, forest management, horticulture, and then there's a couple of other ones. Now, next episode, we're actually going to be speaking with the teacher of this program, both about the program and about the teacher's involvement in vegetable gardening. And so you'll get a little bit more of an intro on the program itself. But for today, we're going to dive right in. We're going to speak to some of the students and hear all the amazing things they have to say. It was really cool to be able to sit down with them and listen to them. And this is more of a conversation than it really was an interview. I do want to note a couple things. One, surprise, surprise, I was sick. So don't mind my voice. I apologize in advance. 2, we were in a greenhouse, which means the furnace was turning on and off. There were fans going. So the audio quality is a little bit different than what you are used to. I'll make a note about that again after. And then a couple of important details if you're listening to this when the episode becomes live and you're located in Canada. We do have a federal election on April 28th, and we do talk about politics and about voting and things like that. And I feel it is my civic duty to remind you to please vote. Please vote. Please vote. Another little housekeeping piece. We also talk about cigarette butt litter. And as I'm recording this, it is April 8th, and you'll be hearing this by the middle of April. There is a really cool movement in Brantford and also across Canada called the Butt Blitz. And it's a team of people that get together and they pick up cigarette butts for the month of April through various organized events or during independent pickup, and Brantford does have a team that's running. So I have put information about it in the show notes so you can go take a peek, whether you're in Brantford or you're in another municipality in Canada. You can go check out to see what's happening in your area, and it is a contest. They have a live dashboard to show which municipality is rocking it. Now I will say, in previous years, I've been very actively involved in Butt Blitz, and we took our role very seriously. Unfortunately, the team that runs Butt Blitz is also a team that is currently participating in the election. We also just had a provincial election, so Butt Blitz is straggling a little bit. They could really use your help. Okay, we're going to dive right in, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello friends, I just want to give some context on where we are before we get started. There's lots of ambient background noise, and this is very much the definition of a field visit. So I'm currently in the greenhouse at Tollgate Tech in Brantford. Beautiful view. I'm going to put the view up in the show notes, and on social media so that you can see what I'm seeing right now. But in the background, we have fans going, and there's also a furnace that's running, and we have 3 different mics that are pointing in different directions. So I just wanted to give some context on where we are and why there's a bit of background noise. Bear with us for this episode as we're going to be diving into some really interesting topics. This group, they do a lot of horticulture. So this is a green industries class, and they focus on various topics, and they grow a lot of the plants in this greenhouse that then get sold to the community every year for fundraising. So again, I'll pop some pictures up in the show notes, and we're going to talk to some of the students about their experience in this class, the type of work that they're doing, and also some environmental issues that are close to their hearts. So again, bear with us with the noise and take a peek for the photos for some context. Let's get started. Thanks for being here, guys. I'd appreciate it if you could give me your first names.
Nathan.
Rowan.
Hey, thanks for being here, guys. So if you want to give me a little quick background on where we are and what class you guys are doing this through, that would be really great.
All right, so we're at the horticulture class at Tollgate. We're in the greenhouse currently.
And so is this the first semester that you guys have been in this class? Is it a 1-semester or 2-semester class?
It's a 1-semester class, but this is my second time being here.
Oh, nice. That's so exciting. Are either of you planning to go into horticulture or forestry or any of the topics that the class covers? Do you want to go, Nathan?
Maybe.
It's
a maybe thing.
Maybe thing, yeah. You have some ideas swirling around. You're not quite sure yet. I mean, it's great because in this class you can explore those ideas, right? What about you, Rowan?
I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've really wanted to take into consideration being like a fire watch.
Okay.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into some of these questions. You guys, the entire class had sent over like a list of questions that you were interested in chatting with, and there was a big focus on tree and soil health, so I'd love to start there. What are the benefits for increasing the tree canopy in Brantford and other cities? Do you guys have any ideas on some ways that we could do that?
I would say trying to get the government to agree with our ideas to increase the tree population in more cities. But it seems how in Canada we have like snow for around like half of the year. It is pretty hard to do that, but if we are able to get more tree space in big cities, then yeah, I think it'll work.
What are the benefits of increasing the tree canopy? So, we go to government, we want them to hear us, we want them to understand our position. What are some of the talking points that we could use to argue our side of things?
All right, a few benefits to having an increased tree canopy in Brantford is improved air quality, more recreational shade for usage, increased biodiversity and habitat for wild animals, and higher stormwater storage. Now, I don't really know how that is pertinent because my knowledge is not too high, but it's what I got.
Yeah, our water table isn't massive here unless you get closer to the river, like over where I am, it's a little bit higher. But a lot of those tree roots can capture a lot of that water before they end up in the stormwater system that the city then needs to process, right? So that's a really good point. Do you guys have any recommendations on the types of trees, or is just having general green space and a bigger tree canopy beneficial? Or is there specific types of trees or trees that we should not be planting?
Okay, well, I have 3 species written down that I'd like to see more planted. The red mulberry tree. They're very delicious if you've ever had mulberries. They're threatened in Brantford specifically. Not really. I believe in just southern Ontario is where they're starting to dwindle in number. I also have a few just endangered species such as the black ash, the blue ash. Oh, I also have the butternut tree written down.
Nice.
So I feel like if we could bring those back to higher populations, it would be beneficial.
Absolutely.
I think we should obviously avoid planting trees that aren't naturally found in the area.
They're not going to like the snow very much if they come from the Mediterranean, right?
No.
They're probably going to die. Are you guys familiar with what's happened with the ash trees here in this area and why they're pretty much gone now? Do you guys know what happened?
I believe it would be the emerald ash borer.
Yeah. So for folks who are listening, I'll pop some images into the show notes so that you can take a peek and see
what a tree that's been decimated by the ash borer looks like. But for Ontario, and I think a good chunk of Canada and the United States, the ash tree really no longer exists because I don't know the specifics of where it came from, but it came from not North America, was brought over here and absolutely decimated the ash tree population, which has been a huge loss for our ecosystem. So it would be amazing to see more ash trees put in, but we also need to address how to deal with the ash borer problem too, right? Mm-hmm. You had mentioned mulberry trees, and there has been conversations about including more edible trees in communities. Do you have any suggestions on what types of edibles we could include, and also how we could ensure that those trees are maintained? So in the case of the mulberry, we know that the mulberries drop, and they put them on school properties a lot, and then the kids end up covered in like stains, and their clothes are covered in stains, and the parents get angry. Do we have any ideas on how we can make sure the food is actually captured and then isn't destructive further to the area?
Well, we could probably just put them in like recreational parks within the community so people can come and take them as they please. Mm-hmm. Maybe like advertise the fact that they are edible, because I'm sure many people would have their doubts and suspicions about trees that they aren't familiar with. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good stuff. What about you, Nathan?
That reminds me, where I live in Lynn, I have a park. There's a park up there, and there's a little bit of a farm. Mm-hmm. Where you are, in the summertime, you are free to take the plants from that farm. And if you were to go even more farther down through the park, there's a ginormous hill. If you just go over that, you would see a ginormous farmland with a lot of crops to see there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the community garden at Linden Hills, right?
Yeah.
So I'm from Eagle Ground Community Gardens, and that's one of the gardens that we include. So for folks listening, we're talking about Linden Hills Community Garden, and that's currently one of our biggest sites. It has 30 garden beds there. They're always looking for volunteers, so if you ever need volunteer hours, you can do it with that group.
They're already done.
Yeah, so you're volunteer. Oh, good for you. Well, if you're ever looking to lend a helping hand at that garden, I can always connect you with the team of volunteers there. But any of the community gardens that you see in the park, you can go in and help yourself to the produce, and we can also get you connected with plants and things like that. So yeah, having edible trees and then also community gardens kind of go hand in hand within the community. What are some other edible trees that we could consider planting?
Throughout my community, I've seen like cherry trees. Mm-hmm. I have seen mulberry trees. I've also seen like a lot of walnut, and they're a lot less like instant in order to eat them, but with preparation they are quite good.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people don't realize that the black walnuts that plague us every fall are edible. You just have to process them, like you said. Yeah. Do you have any ideas, Nathan?
Through my experience going down south, I have coconuts from coconut trees, mm-hmm. and they're amazing. Mm-hmm. Recommend it. And that's the only type of tree that I can remember eating out of. Mm-hmm. Maybe an apple tree or whatnot, or an apple bush. Mm-hmm. But
the only thing with the fruit trees is they do need maintenance. If you guys are familiar with, how they're planted, how they're grown, they have to be pruned, and the fruit has to be taken off of them every year. Mm-hmm. So if we plant them in public spaces, we want to make sure that we have a plan to take care of them. We actually just planted 16 fruit trees at our new greenhouse and learning center at Woodman Park, like on the east side of town. So those trees will be able to go in and we'll maintain regularly. So those are on public property. They're in a park, and anybody can go and help themselves. We have some trees in some other parks too. That people can help themselves, but we always want to make sure that there's like a plan, right? Okay. Let's move over to horticulture therapy. What is horticulture therapy, and who does it benefit?
Horticulture therapy, in more simpler terms, is a person trying to mentally make themselves feel better by doing planting as a hobby or any other type of thing. It's also good for rehabilitation for anyone who is mentally ill, for them to go into recovery and able to be a better person.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Rowan?
It's not unlike like artistic therapy, mm-hmm. where you put all your effort into one specific thing in order to produce something, so you get, in perhaps a more literal sense here, the fruits of your labor, mm-hmm. but you also get some form of pride in completing it, as well as perhaps soothing oneself from any like angry thoughts that one might have, or destructive thoughts, or just all around like negative opinions and feelings.
Absolutely. And it's also the act of being able to do something repetitively and quietly that allows you to maybe meditate a little bit and kind of recede back into your space and be able to recover, right? Yeah. How could we incorporate horticulture therapy in our lives as gardeners?
I would say make it as a compulsory class so that more people can have more information about it and not just having work as their primary thing on their mind.
What about you, Rowan?
I think that, it could be more heavily advertised, because I feel like a lot of people don't like realize how important like gardening is for one's like mental health as well as like hobbies.
Absolutely.
Like, it's always good to have something to do, and especially something that you can like physically see and taste the results of. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and then on the more practical side of things, if we, for example, we're growing a vegetable garden, we now can supplement our grocery bill and also have access to fresh, nutritious food. And then do you have any recommendations for how we can encourage horticulture therapy in the actual community itself? So, we've talked about students, we've talked about school. What about for the community as a whole and encouraging the everyday person to get out and participate in nature-based activities?
I would say make it as an event. A lot of people who are maybe in more competitive stuff might like a good challenge. If there were to be like an event to where if you're going to win something for doing horticulture or something that is in that sort of direction, that could probably make a lot of people who would like the reward to do it. And if they thought, hey, this was fun, then they'll probably continue to do that. And then they'll fully normalize that sort of thought.
Absolutely. Do you have any ideas, Rowan?
Well, I like the idea of like making an event about it. I feel like having it be a competition might defeat the purpose of it, because if people are competitive about it, it might be haphazard and destructive, and they might cause harm to the plants. It's
like
meant
the
to be
opposite of like therapy.
Yeah, it's meant to be a soothing, like both personal and like external growth, not pattern, but like habit.
Maybe from the competition perspective, it could be like personal goals. So every participant has a set of goals that they need to achieve, and instead of it being competitive with other people, it's just competitive in the work that you complete. Does that make sense? Yeah, might be an idea. All right, good stuff. Do you guys have any other pieces that you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
Personally, I enjoy foraging as a hobby. So I have
let's
a few
get the
things.
foraging questions in. Again, I wasn't sure if there was anything specific, and I also love talking about foraging. So why don't you give me an intro on what you like best about foraging, and then maybe you can provide some recommendations on best practices.
All right. Well, my personal favorite thing to do when foraging. So I go out with my father from time to time to go foraging. So it's a good time to connect with him, as well as just enjoy nature, get outside, fresh air, sunlight. It's fun. You get to enjoy delicious foods that you might not normally have available without looking for them.
Rowan, what are some best practices that people should keep in mind when they are out foraging?
Well, I feel like the most important practice is to not eat what you don't know. There's unless you're certain about it, you probably shouldn't eat it, because there are a lot of toxic look-alike plants that look similar. For example, hemlock, poison and water hemlock, both look a lot like wild carrot. So you can't eat those, even though one of them's is named poison hemlock. They're both toxic. Don't eat either of them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just avoid anything that you aren't certain about. And if you have a guide, maybe to refer to it.
That's what I was going to recommend, yeah. Anyone listening, I'm only a beginner forager, but some best practices that I use is ensuring that I have field guides with me and that I am 100% certain of what I am picking. Also, and maybe you're going to touch on this, but making sure we're not taking, more than a very small portion of what's available. Ultimately, when we forage, we are taking from the very local environment and the bees and the birds and the critters that rely on that food. So we want to make sure that we are being ethical when we forage, and we're only taking, a very small portion of what's available. You have anything else to add for best practices?
I would normally agree with you on that statement of trying to preserve forageable items. There is one that you should always pick up, even if you don't plan on eating it. Garlic mustard.
Yes.
It's very rampant, very delicious. I recommend you eat it, not in high doses.
Even if you're just on a walk and you notice there's garlic mustard,
Just tear it
rip
up.
that sucker out.
Yeah.
For this area, it's incredibly invasive. It's really taken over and has been very destructive. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And I don't believe there's anything that eats it naturally here in Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's a problem.
Up to us to remove it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is very good, so I would recommend eating it if you do find it. I'm sure you could probably pull up an image of it, of what it looks like.
Oh, I'll put it in the show notes for folks who are listening, and also I'll put in some field guide recommendations for those listening. Rowan, what are some of your favorite things to forage?
Personally, I do actually enjoy foraging for garlic mustard because it's removing harmful invasive species as well as, getting good food. It's very delicious to eat on its own. You can put it in a salad. You could use it as a garnish. There are a lot of things you can do with it. I also like to go for violets.
Yep.
Because, those are quite good. Also, garlic scapes. They're not as common or prevalent, but when you find them, they're great.
Absolutely. Delicious. My favorite, the best time of the year for me is heading down to, so I live over by the river, and there's a very, very large area that grows black raspberries. Have you ever foraged black raspberries?
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah.
There's a park nearby my house that has some.
They're delicious. They're tiny, tiny, tiny little guys. And there's many people in the area that forage for the black raspberries, and they're very thorny, so they can be hard to get to, but a ton of fun to forage. And again, it gets you out in nature and gets you, so usually I'll bring a friend with me who's never done something like that, and they often really enjoy it too. So, yeah.
I'm never done foraging in my life. I mostly just eat the food that I brought with me, and then if I ever feel hungry, live with it.
You forage in the fridge, right?
Fridge only.
Fridge only. Fridge only foraging.
Because I do not trust my knowledge to ever trust myself with thinking that, oh, this plant here is good.
It's definitely a skill that you develop over time. Like, Rowan, how long have you been foraging, and how long did it take you to feel comfortable in identifying a particular plant?
I want to say since I was, 13 or 14, so
That's
roughly 5 years.
Yeah, that's quite a while.
I'm still not too good at it.
I feel your pain. I've also maybe been doing it for 4 years, casually. And I also am not always that confident, especially with mushrooms. I'll never forage
me
mushrooms.
neither. There's only one that I can, identify.
Yeah, and it's like puffballs, right? Split open. Or morels.
Morels, yeah, those are distinct. I was thinking of the mica cap. You know what
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah. It's very scary for folks listening. If you're foraging for mushrooms, please know what the heck you're talking about. Take a field guide with you and understand that every single mushroom has a look-alike. So if the field guide tells you that the mushroom should not be hollow and the mushroom you're looking at is hollow, do not eat it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else to add for foraging?
I mean, just, it's always fun to go out into, the nature around you and, go with a friend. It's less fun when you're alone.
Absolutely.
It's always entertaining to go with someone and to, just have fun, look for stuff, eat stuff.
Maybe bring a dog, go on a nice long walk. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. If you have anything else to add, now's the time to do so. If anything that really in your heart, you're like, oh, I wish I got to say this. If you wanted to mention something, we won't touch on those. If you wanted to mention something and you're like, oh, I wish I told Taylor, let your instructor know. She can email me. I can include it. It's not a problem at all. Okay?
Alrighty.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, guys. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
for
think
being
so.
here, guys. Do you
Yes,
want to
Thank you for coming.
give me your first names to start?
Yeah, I'm Emerus.
I'm Brooke. Thanks for being here, Emerus and Brooke. And you guys are a part of the Green Industries class here at Tollgate Tech. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are either of you looking to get into any of the industries that are touched on in this class?
I'm thinking somewhere in the line of environmental sciences and whatnot. I want to just be able to do a bunch of everything in a sense.
That's a lot of fun. What about you, Brooke?
I feel that.
You feel that? Yeah, you're still kind of figuring it out. What grade are you guys in?
I'm in grade 11.
Grade 11?
12.
Grade 12, so you're really starting to figure that out now then,
Yeah.
eh? If I could go back and do it over again, I would also go in the direction of environmental science.
Yeah.
So I've landed here. Obviously, I've managed to get here somehow. But yeah, it's a big interest of mine too.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, let's dive right in. I understand you both have an interest a little bit in foraging and maybe talking about some best practices for foraging. Emerus, if you want to start.
Yeah, all right. So some of the best practices when foraging, in my opinion, are, well, the biggest one is being educated. You can use books to do that. There's certain colleges and universities with workshops that will actually take you out to a place where you can go foraging. And there's a bunch of different opportunities. You also have to go to, you need a certain place to go. Typically not near factories and whatnot, because, fun fact, there's a compound in mushrooms.
Middle of Belmont.
It's commonly found in edible mushrooms, and it can specifically bind to heavy metals, causing, a lot of accumulation and
You can
whatnot
lift it
in
up
them.
if you need to.
Yeah. But compared to, normal plants, vascular plants, edible mushrooms have a stronger enrichment and absorbent of metallic elements such as cadmium, lead, and mercury from the soil, and substrates which the mycelium lives accumulates heavy metals, especially arsenic, cadmium, mercury, or lead, can enter the human body through a contaminated mushroom, leading to serious health problems. This can even be amnesia, blindness, and deafness. You can get kidney damage and cancer. So they pose a very big threat to human health if they're foraged in the wrong place. So make sure you have a very healthy environment that's away from most factories or I'd say even highways and whatnot.
Yeah, like commercial and industrial
Yeah.
areas. I had no idea this even existed. This is good to
I
know.
found this out a few days ago, and I was like, wow, this is actually crazy. You actually do kind of have to. I didn't realize how absorbent mushrooms actually were. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. You have anything to add for the mushrooms?
Yeah, sure. I seen a study and it was about there's a certain mushroom that eats plastic.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was
Interesting.
Very cool.
And are they, I feel like I know what you're talking about. Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the worms that eat plastic. Are they working on capitalizing that ability as a way of processing our extra plastic that
I think
is
so.
just landing in the landfill?
Microplastics and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe. I might
Yeah.
look into that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember where you found the study?
Not exactly.
Okay, I'll look for it. Do either of you, I was speaking with somebody just before this.
Mhm.
Both of us are too scared to forage mushrooms. Do either of you, other than, I'll do morels and sometimes puffballs, but do either of you forage for mushrooms?
I will look for them on occasion. Whenever I'm on my walks, I'll always look for mushrooms, even just when walking in a park or something. Obviously, I don't pick or eat those mushrooms. Sometimes if I'm I go quadding and whatnot, so if I stop and go walk around, I'll see certain mushrooms. If I see a morel or puffball, a lot of the time I'll bring the morels home and I'll just get my mom to double check them, make sure they're edible. I don't typically eat them. I'm a little scared of bugs, but
Yeah, morels usually have bugs inside of them, but I always
Yeah.
cut them in half first because that's
Yeah.
how you can make sure
That's
that it's
how
a
you
real
tell,
morel,
too.
but then
Yeah.
also you can remove the bugs.
yeah. So I haven't actually eaten them. I've seen a few puffballs, but the puffballs I've seen aren't really ripe.
Yeah.
They're always. I don't know if they're the same puffballs, but I found one when I was at a barbecue the one time, and it was this about the size of a football,
It's big.
and it was one of the ones where you rip it apart and it has the spores when you squeeze it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right type of puffball, if it's way past
When looking at the puffballs, it depends on their texture and also it
Yeah.
depends on when you cut it open, what's on the inside.
Yeah.
My partner and I were investigating puffballs recently because he
Mhm.
found one on the golf course. We were talking about heavy metals.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
not eat a puffball from the golf course. They spray
Yeah.
a lot of crap on there.
Yeah.
But we looked and there's literally dozens of puffballs that
Oh,
can pop up
wow.
in this area and all of them are edible. So
Wow.
it really depends. And, recommendations, always making sure
Mhm.
you're bringing a really solid, reputable field guide with
Yeah.
you. And I'll put a few of them in the show notes. But being really careful with mushrooms. And if you are not 100% sure, do not put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
Fun fact though, you cannot get sick in any way, shape, or form from just touching them. So
Nope.
yeah.
Can't you, for certain death caps, if you do touch them and put your hands in your mouth or something, that
Yeah.
is
That's
one of
considered
the
ingesting though,
circumstances?
right? Yeah, so you just
Yeah.
want to make sure you're washing your hands.
Oh.
What are some risks associated with mushroom foraging and how can we avoid these risks?
So, well, some risks, like I stated before, you can literally get amnesia. There's kidney failure. You can get deafness. You can go blind. In the worst case, you can die if you eat the wrong one.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important back to the first question, being educated. You gotta know what you're foraging.
What about you, Brooke? Anything to add to that? No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Were there any other risks or any other foraging topics you wanted to touch on?
Also, pesticide-free areas.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta know, even if it's in the forest, it's not being sprayed.
Yeah, like anything near, like, really close to farmlands or something.
Or even train tracks. Train tracks get sprayed so the weeds and all the growth doesn't go onto the train tracks.
Yeah, they're quite toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so avoid golf courses, like you said, train tracks, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that in the moment. So if you're planning to forage or anything, as particularly mushrooms, like find a very isolated area to do so where you're pretty positive, and also make sure you are not trespassing, you're not on private property. Yeah, I'm in an ID group on Facebook for plants and mushrooms, so people all over the world, if they've ingested something and they have symptoms, the identification is emergency based. So I'm on my feed, there's always like, help, my dog ate this mushroom and is now like headed to the vet, you know what I mean? And it's interesting to see how they can identify those mushrooms by like flipping them over, looking at the gills, looking at whether the mushroom was hollow or not, where it was growing. I also did know that a lot of mushrooms will double or triple up in the areas, and that furnace has been making a lot of noise, will double and triple up in the areas that they're growing in. So in one small patch of like mulch, you could have 4 different mushrooms. So if your dog ate one and you're not able to identify it, it may not be the one that you see. So.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to some environmental concerns. What are some environmental issues that exist in our community?
Some that I've noticed are, well, littering's a big one, single-use plastics, factories, those are a big one. The use of electricity, let's all be real, we use a lot.
Yeah, it's about how we generate that electricity.
Yes,
that's
specifically,
important.
that's the most important. A lot of water waste, and then like toxic cleaning supplies and whatnot, I find. I don't know, that one was just kind of off the top of my head.
That kind of goes into our water systems and then comes back to us.
Yeah.
There, in this area in particular, I often hear the argument that, well, we have a large access of, like, we have a lot of access to fresh water because of the river. Therefore, I don't care about my water use because, one, the water that goes down my drain is just going to be recycled back into the water system again. And two, we have essentially right now unlimited access to fresh water. Therefore, I don't care about the amount of water that I'm using. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I do kind of agree. It's just mostly in certain areas, not really around here. There's certain areas that have a lot of water usage, and even just Toronto for one. I know their infrastructure isn't really built to sustain all that, but just that mass amount of water usage.
And it does get recycled into the system. My concern, though, is the impact that it has on the wastewater treatment plant, the additional electricity that's needed to clean that water, right? And it takes water to clean the water as well. So sometimes that argument can be a little bit iffy depending on, what stance you're coming from. We talked about littering, and this is something that we all have talked about since we were 2 years old and could understand the concept of dropping a candy wrapper. What are some, I know this is kind of self-explanatory, like don't throw your crap out the window, don't litter. But what are some other measures, practical solutions that we can put in place to encourage the community to not litter?
More garbage cans. I find a lot of people, it's just out of pure laziness.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't want to hold on to this till I get to a garbage can. Why should I have to?
At BCI, they give out free apples and stuff like that. And if you just walk around the place and there'll be apples, like, smashed around.
They gotta stop doing that. You ruined that privilege for yourselves.
100%.
I volunteer with a group called Green Team, so we do waste diversion at festivals and events. If you've ever been to Brantford's Canada Day, you've probably seen us before. We went into BCI to talk with them about Green Team, and all of the students were like, this school is so bad for waste diversion, for littering. I don't know what is going on over there.
It's... Paris is also pretty bad, PDHS.
Do you think it's the age?
I do think it's just... It depends. It's a lot of just education. I don't think a lot of people actually realize how bad littering is and whatnot. Like, when I go on walks and stuff, I'm not looking down at my phone. I'm kind of absorbing everything around me. And I notice, like, I'll see, like, wrappers and cans just on the side of the road. Even if I'm going down country stretches, like, you'll still notice those cans and those wrappers.
Yeah, they're in the ditch.
Yeah, exactly. Even sometimes styrofoam, which... if I'm correct, never dissolves. It never biodegrades, and even then,
Yeah, it's like another
it's-
type form of plastic.
exactly.
Yeah. Even
Yeah.
when you're driving down the highway, here in Southern Ontario, when we do get snow,
Mhm.
in the winter, people would be littering, and then all the snow would melt, and then the litter would be everywhere. And it was just like, oh
yeah.
my gosh. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It's terrible.
I had another question, and now I can't think.
It's so sad too. Like, we're destroying like
Yeah.
ecosystems. just
I-
by-
Out of pure laziness.
Yeah, so I'm going to Brazil actually on Sunday.
Oh, cool.
And last time I was there was about 2 years ago. I went to their beach, and I'm a suck for environmental issues.
Mhm.
Like, it hurts my soul. So the beach is like a minute walk from our property down there. And when I first went there, I noticed so there's a bunch of bars and stuff on the beaches and
Mhm.
restaurants, like little small just beach bars. And a lot of, one, single-use plastics, like a lot of that is used, and a lot of it just stays on the beach. And so the water, what is it called?
To tide.
Yeah, the tide. So
Yeah.
the tide comes in and out, and it like changes. So, I whatever time the tide comes in, all the garbage that was on the beach just gets washed out into the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
So
it'll
it's
get pushed
horrible.
up, and then it
Yeah.
gets washed back out.
So I would
Ugh.
go back to my house, and I would grab a garbage bag, and I'd be the only person, and I don't live there. I would be the only person just going and picking up garbage. I had a few little girls come help me. They were very nice. They just saw me doing it, and they started coming and picking up trash and just giving it to me in the bag, which I found was really cute, and it was a little heartwarming.
Endearing.
Yeah. So that was a cute experience. And I think I did that. I was there for almost a month, and I did that almost every day.
Nice.
And I'm going back now, and they finally have a volunteer cleanup for the beaches, and I'm really happy about that. It makes me really happy.
People don't realize, in the case with BCI and the apples, people don't realize that, it's convenient for you to throw it, but somebody picks that up. Somebody
Yeah.
cleans up your mess, right?
Yeah.
In the case of Brazil, and I'm not familiar with the area that you're
Mm-hmm.
going to, but some countries don't have the infrastructure to handle the
Yeah.
waste, which is where the problem stems from.
What
so
they do for their waste, when I was down there, I think they also started a trash collection system.
Yeah.
When I was down there the last time, on garbage day, they had it about twice a month.
Mhm.
You would pile up all your garbage on the street. They would sweep it up into a pile and burn it.
Yeah.
That includes plastics, organics, everything.
Yeah.
Everything you throw out.
And that's where their infrastructure is currently at, and
Yeah.
they will probably improve that down the road, but
Hopefully.
that's what that system can handle, right? We're in a very privileged area where we have access to landfills, we have access to public services, we have access to garbage pickups. Now we have our green bin program that people can participate in, right? Not everybody has access to these things. So understanding our privilege and understanding that we have access to those things, whereas other people don't, right?
Exactly,
So
yeah.
any other practical solutions that we can enact here in the area?
Maybe watch what we consume
Mhm.
and how we're consuming it, I guess.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. We look at, they're dropping the pop cans and they're dropping the candy wrappers and all of these single-use items that are now just going to be trashed. If we could take a step back and maybe decrease the amount of waste that's coming from the single-use items,
Mhm.
there wouldn't be anything to drop in the first place,
Yeah.
right? Like Halloween candy, the worst, right?
Oh,
Whereas,
100%.
when you go to get bulk candy, it's not individually wrapped, but in the way of Halloween, each piece has to be individually
Yes.
wrapped. And then where do those wrappers end up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing is just when you're shopping, try to avoid things that are gonna use single-use plastics and
Yeah.
you buy it.
Absolutely.
Because the less you buy it, the less in demand it is. So it kind of
Yeah, I always buy, the little Breton vegetable crackers, crackers.
Yes.
I usually buy the little minis in a box.
Mhm.
And then one day I bought them. I got home and it was actual 6 packages inside of the box when I intended to just buy a loose box of crackers.
Yeah.
I now had all these packages and I was like, are you kidding me? And when you look at the packages side by side, there's just this little tiny indicator in the corner that said 6 packs. I'm thinking of the French version. All it said was 6 packs in this little tiny corner, and I just missed it when I was picking them up.
That's annoying.
But even assessing like, okay, how many individual items are coming out of this, and is there a different solution? So that's a good idea. Any other practical solutions before we move on? What about on the government level? You know, we've talked about how we have access to things like waste removal, landfill. We've talked about how the Green Bin program was put in place last year. What are some other ways that we can advocate to our government officials to take some of these issues seriously?
What I would say, what first comes to mind, is maybe offer more for trash collection, but they have to do more.
Yeah.
Which some people, at then, they just want the money. You know what I
like
mean?
pressure people to use the
Yeah.
recycling streams and the green bin streams
Yeah.
more often. It's a very hard question, and this
Yeah,
is why
it
people
is.
often feel a little bit frozen in holding our government officials accountable. Are either of you 18 yet?
No.
Yeah. Almost 18. You're so close to being able to vote. We have an upcoming provincial and
Yes.
federal election, and that's going to be very important for, you know, you guys, especially, you know,
The
we're young
next few
people, right?
years.
We are the next generation,
Yeah.
and making sure that we are, you know, voting with these issues in mind. I can tell you about some initiatives that have been advocated for. So here in Brantford, there's an Environmental and Sustainability Policy Advisory Committee. It's a very long name, but it's a group of people like you and I that provides recommendations to the city from a consumer perspective. You know, the city says, hey, this is something environmentally related that we're working on. What input do you have? There's also, a while back, some residents had advocated to put in butt out systems downtown. So people with their cigarette butts, they could go into a little container. They were on all of the light posts, and then those butts go to TerraCycle to be properly recycled. And the idea was that there would be less butts on the ground. Now, I can tell you from experience, there's not less butts on the ground, but that's another idea of an action that residents took to advocate, you know, for something like that.
Could that be something just not people not knowing about it, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
'Cause,
So
like, it obviously it would take more profit to advertise that, but even just like go print out a bunch of papers being with like some bright colors and put it on every
post,
the lamp
absolutely. I think also, like, people don't realize that their cigarette butts are incredibly harmful for the environment. So that's the first step, right?
Not only do the toxic chemicals go into the ground if it's on like soil and whatnot, I don't think they're also one of the other things that don't, like, they don't dissolve, they don't biodegrade, they just kind of
They're
stay
plastic.
there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Do you guys have anything else to add before we wrap up here?
One of the things I wanted to talk about was how basically gardens and actual ecosystems and conservation areas are better than public parks, like for like everything. pretty
Why
much.
why are the public parks, what makes them better over the public parks? What particular qualities?
Just they offer more housing for wildlife. It's a lot more eco-friendly. Trees are one of the they're a very big part of the environment. They produce the air we breathe, and they take in the bad stuff, carbon dioxide too, which is one of the things factories produce, which is
Also,
something.
the equipment that's used to maintain the grass in the parks also
That as
uses
well.
a lot of
That as
fuel and puts out a lot of emissions too.
Yes.
And the grass itself is neither beneficial nor harmful to the
Yes.
environment, but it's like, we could have anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I put down conservation areas too on here because most conservation areas, obviously, they're trying to conserve the land. Like, they're taking care of it. Yes, there are some places, maybe even campsites, that are on the conservation area.
But they still have a lot of rules, right?
They still have a lot of
Yeah.
rules, but it's
To
also
help conserve the
exactly.
area. Yeah.
Exactly. You kind of need rules in a, like, to an extent for certain things like that, because people will kind of take that privilege too far after a certain time.
Absolutely.
But it's just better. It offers, like, natural forests and ecosystems, offer a lot more for the native wildlife as well, native plants. Like, you don't see, most of the time, you don't see native plants growing in just a natural park.
Not
or,
very
like, a
often,
city
no.
park.
We have, there are a lot of pollinator gardens now that go hand in hand with the community gardens,
Yes.
but it really, there's a balance, right? Because at the same time, we still want to encourage people to enjoy outdoor spaces. We want
Yes.
them to be able to have a space to go play soccer, a space to go
Exactly.
climb on the playground, be on the swings, but to be
100%.
able to incorporate some of these ideas into the parks, and instead of just making them like barren grass, lawns, encouraging things like pollinator gardens,
Yep.
like increasing the tree canopies, stuff like
Exactly.
that. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a big thing too, which is tree canopies. It adds more wildlife.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And then also
that's-
helps with the climate control
Yep.
and heat island effect and things like
Yes.
that.
Those are things too. Those are good things to consider as well.
One more thing to add about the government, how we can, imply more things that are good.
Yeah, policies and encourage them to participate. Yeah.
Maybe add more classes, like green industry classes to schools.
Yeah. Or maybe even I know you have to take geography, which kind of touches base on a little bit of the environmental problems, but even making an environmental science class mandatory.
Yeah. Have you guys found this class beneficial?
Yes,
Yeah.
extremely,
Yes,
honestly.
I love it. I love it so much.
Good
If
stuff.
we're doing, possibly we might be doing another program here at Tollgate where we have the backfield over there.
Yep.
And it's basically just grass.
Yep.
And there's a little corner of weeds and bushes and all the plants and flowers and whatnot. They just kind of grew. So Miss Bromhall was thinking that we try and start a program where it's a 2-period class. I'm a magnet student, so I come from a different school for 2 periods, and I'm offered this program. And you come and you learn basically the hardscape and softscape of landscaping. So you would be building some infrastructure and also planting it as well.
Yeah, I think there's been talks of fruit trees
Yep.
and native plants and things like that, and learning practical skills and these practical ideas on
Yep.
how to diversify our natural spaces or our green spaces. So
100%.
that's a really cool idea. Yeah, having encouraging the government to make these types of classes mandatory, I think, is a great start, because then it captures students very early on,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And we're not. Never mind. I'm not going to say what I want to say.
Even just maybe more education too early on.
Yeah,
I think a
absolutely.
lot of it is parents' views as well, though.
That's true. Yep.
Because a lot of the kids' sometimes behavior reflects onto what their parents do. So if their
Yep.
parents don't care, if their parents are just whatever, we're all gonna not be here anyways before the world ends, and they just chuck their trash out the window, and it's
Yeah, it's going to pass on to the kids.
exactly.
I'm Lily.
I'm Andrew.
Thanks for being here, guys. So we're going to focus right now on the tree canopy within Brantford and other cities. And I'm just curious, what are the benefits for increasing the tree canopy in Brantford and in other cities? Do you have any ideas?
Well, I think increasing the more of the trees would help the more wildlife that lives out in the woods, and that they have more homes to be in, and that the more shade that we have in the forests that we do around here won't dry out the wood. There would be less forest fires likely to happen, and it'd be a nice place to sit in the parks to cool down and have shade.
Yeah, shade's a big one, especially as our summers here are quite hot and quite humid, so having that shade is very beneficial. And you guys are you aware of the heat island effect, where more concrete means more heat, becomes a heat sink, but
Yeah.
if you're able to add trees into that, it can decrease that effect a little bit and
Kinda
bring
like
down
a
the
giant
temperature.
oven.
Yeah, it's a giant oven. So any other benefits, anything to add, any other benefits that we
Well,
should consider?
If there's the homeless that are around Brantford, and if it's going to be really hot out, they're probably going to want a shady spot to sit, and there's not really that many parks around here. We're turning into more of a bigger city. We're cutting more stuff down, so that doesn't help. Then we're also scaring away all the animals.
Yeah.
I live right next to a wooded area, and they cut down a lot of it, and then a lot of the animals started moving up more towards the houses, or some are just roaming the streets or sitting down near the river.
Yeah. The other thing is, a lot of we have a lot of parks here, but those parks don't all exactly have trees. And that's part of the issue, or maybe they're planting trees, but it's taking so long for those trees to develop into, useful, beneficial trees.
Yeah.
So we're taking out these big mature trees and then we're replacing them with these little guys that can be part of the problem, right? Yeah. Okay, let's see what types of trees, and you can say skip, I don't want to answer this one, but what types of trees should we be planting and why?
Oak trees.
Oak trees, okay.
I feel like that they have is either really strong for certain things, and I feel like the more we plant, and then with the more that it becomes of a mother tree and it starts spreading to its saplings, we'll be able to get more stronger wooded areas. And they're pretty big. too. So they'd also get more shade at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Oak trees are strong, and like you said, they'll grow a little bit slower, but they're, slow and steady wins the race in this case, instead of just...
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys have an opinion on planting edible trees in communities?
I would love to have a fruit tree around the community I live in or at school, so that for the kids who just want to like go for a walk and they see like either a pear tree or an apple tree, and then they can just grab them, like peaches or something. We do have this like blackberry bush or tree, and I like to like grab the wild berries off of them or something. It's awesome.
That's awesome. So are you a bit of a forager then?
A little bit. I
little
like
bit.
to scavenge for stuff in the woods and like take them home and like keep them.
What types of things do you like to pick up?
Rocks, sticks, animal bones. So stupid. Or like I'll try to find a rock that would either be a geode inside, and I'll try to break them open and see what's in there.
Yeah. Do you forage for any edible food?
I do actually try to look for puffball mushrooms.
Yes, we were talking about puffball mushrooms in the last conversation. What are some measures that you take to ensure that the puffball mushrooms that you are harvesting are in fact puffballs?
I kind of rip it open just to check.
Take a
I
peek
rip it.
inside. Yeah. Make sure you're sure before you consume it.
And I make sure that it's like white inside and not green or brown.
Or like gray.
Yeah.
When you're foraging, so it's mushrooms and
I like looking at the raspberries or the wild mulberries and all that.
Delicious. I know I harvest black raspberries all the time down by the river. One of my favorite things to do in the spring.
It's one of my favorite things to do as well. I'll like bring a little cup and I'll just like pile them in.
Yes, I know, and you can snack on them. Do you forage for food at any point?
Not really.
Not really. It's not
I don't
your
really
vibe.
live in like an area where there's trees or plants in general.
Okay.
I live in like near Drummond, so downtown.
Oh, okay.
Pretty bad there.
You got to go down to Earl Hague. We got a big community garden over there.
Speaking of downtown, there's not many trees down there unless you're going past like the park.
Yeah, that's true. There's not a lot of trees downtown. Like there are on the outskirts, but within the actual downtown core, no, there's not a lot of trees at all. It's probably a degree or two hotter down there.
Unless it's like the little square parks that are there, there's not that many trees.
It's like every time I go downtown Hamilton or downtown Toronto, I'm like, what? Why is it so hot down here?
There's no shade.
Yeah, exactly. There's no shade and everything's concrete, right? What are some other questions that you had responses to? Do you want to talk about soil health? Is that something that interests you?
I mean, we were talking about that in class.
Oh, let's do it. All right. So we're talking a little bit about mushrooms here, about puffball mushrooms. And in order to be able to grow mushrooms, you need to have good soil. So did I write these down? Oh, here we go. Do you know what mycelium is?
No, I don't think I pay attention that much.
That's okay. It is something that is in the soil. Question, you guys have been talking about soil health in class. What types of information has been floating around?
For soil, I feel like if it's too dry, the plant is going to just like kaput.
Yeah, the roots are going to shrivel up.
Yeah, so hydration in the soil is a good thing. Having organisms in there, like the decomposer, some form of compost, having the right nutrients of potassium and minerals and all that, that would be really good for the plants to keep them going, keep them fresh and green.
Absolutely. What types of, particularly in situations where you're not in a greenhouse growing things, you're outside growing things in gardens, in the ground, what type of fertilizers would you recommend to keep that nutrient load up?
I do not know.
Well, we've mentioned compost, which is going to be one of the best ones.
Yeah, compost would be good. Some form of manure, either pig, cow, or sheep.
It's got to be rotted manure, not fresh manure.
No.
Burn all the plants.
Yeah. We did test the soil out back of our school to see if we could start a garden there. We had to check the pH of it and all this stuff. We checked how much clay was in there, how much sand, and how much silt. There was half an inch of silt and half an inch of sand.
Ooh,
but
that's not bad.
No clay.
Good. It is most of Brantford. I have a story for you. Most of Brantford is very sandy, so that's a very common. And you guys probably had a little bit of a higher pH. Do you remember what the pH was?
I think it was average.
It was average. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, so that's like the type of conditions that I grow into. Now, we planted a bunch of trees a couple weeks ago at Woodman Park, which is on the east side of town. Are you familiar? Where the new pool went in? It's over by like the hospice center, St. Joe's.
We were just at the hospice center not long ago.
Oh yeah, you guys were doing the garden there, right?
Yeah.
So in that area, we went to plant trees, and I should have checked the soil first, but the contractor had just planted trees, so the city had already deemed it worthy to plant trees. It was a foot of clay.
A foot of clay.
And then after that, it was straight sand. Like, we could have been a sandcastle. I have never... Here, I should show you a picture. And for folks listening, I'll put a picture in the show notes. I've never experienced anything like this before. It was, like, literally the worst. It was
What
just,
do you
we
do?
were like shaving the soil.
Oh, wow.
It was like you couldn't even get a shovel through it.
So with the clay that you find, do you guys like send it?
So that's all clay, and then you can see where the sand starts.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We planted anyways.
Do you send that clay into like pottery shops to get made for like
People
China
can.
or
Yeah, so
mugs?
there are people out there who will use natural clay to make pottery. It is very hard though, because it has to be cleaned. So in this case, we just left it, but there are people out there that will forage for clay like that to be able to
Cleaning
use.
clay isn't actually that difficult.
I think in like large quantities to like
Not
in
really.
a shop would
You
be.
kind of so you take it and you would like soak it in water until it becomes slip.
Yeah,
It'll become slip,
and then you have to dry it out again.
and then
right?
you dry it out, and then you run it through a strainer again, and then you just repeat that. It's really not that hard.
Have you ever foraged for wild clay?
When I went camping in like grade 8, I don't know where it was. I just know we were up, I think, north. And there was like this river, and there was like a lot of clay in there, like a lot. And there was like people who just scoop it up. I was watching them make like little mugs or cups out of it, and I thought it was really cool. But I would love to find wild clay out in the woods where I live.
That's so cool.
just
Yeah, you
to
gotta
make
look where
stuff.
it's wet, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you joining me and giving me your insight. What's your name?
I'm Logan.
Hi, Logan. I'm Taylor. It's nice to meet you. You probably already know what my name is, though. So, yeah, the questions, like, we had gotten feedback from the other students about what they were interested in. And from there, I had built questions around those interests. So, why don't you tell me why you're in this class? So, you said that you really enjoy the actual plants themselves,
Yeah.
growing. Is it the plants within the greenhouse that you enjoy, or do you like growing gardens outside of this space?
I would say I enjoy the greenhouse a lot because it's pretty calming, relaxing.
Yeah.
Being able to look at a bunch of plants and yeah.
And it's pretty quiet in here, too. Does
Yeah.
it stay quiet?
I would say
in
yeah.
here?
Even when people are like watering the plants and we have a few people working in here, it's relatively quiet. People are normally just doing their own thing, taking care of the plants.
That's kind of nice. Everyone's in their own little world, right?
Yeah.
What are your favorite plants currently in here?
There's this one plant. It's white, but then if you pour water on it, it goes back to its normal color, kind of.
Oh,
It's like the one over there. It's like are they all just right up?
interesting. I'll have to take a peek. I'll insert a note in here about what plant that is. That's really cool. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, it's like white normally. It like looks white, and then if you put a bit of water on it, it's still like
Are these ones right here?
yeah, those.
Yes,
ones.
yes. I know
Yeah,
what
it's
you're
like those
talking about.
leaves.
Yeah, the leaves like almost hydrate briefly, and then when they dry off again, they turn back to white because they're kind of soft and fluffy.
Yeah.
So, do you want to revisit the question of what's your motivation for being in this class?
I didn't really have a motivation to be in this class. It was more or less just
A class to take.
Yeah.
Well, you lucked out, right? Are you planning to go into any of the green industries that you guys talk about in class as a
I
career?
feel like the only one that really interested me was the forest firefighter.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've had like my friend, my dad's uncle, like dad's friend. He's a tree cutter. He like gets flied up in like
Oh, like an arborist?
and like helicopters to be
Oh.
like they cut like and last I think he broke his arm last time he was doing it. But yeah, he has to like be like put up in really tall trees
Oh
and he
my
has to cut them
gosh.
down
Oh, that's so
and
scary.
cut branches off them and all
So
that.
you want to have this risky, scary job?
That's his job, but he makes good money doing it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean the risk associated, right?
Yeah.
It has to be worth it.
he
So
did
you've
break his
considered
wrist doing it. So
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's a lot of other risks associated. So, what other parts of this class have interest you other than like caretaking of the plants? What has been your favorite part so far this semester?
I feel like honestly learning about the plants. There's so many there's a bunch of different things about like different plants and like which ones like a lot ones need to be like watered a lot more. Some just they can go without being watered for like weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool. I know there's a huge variety in here. I took some pictures earlier and took a peek. Is this the first year you've been in this class? Have you taken it before?
Technically, yes, this is like the first year. I wasn't at like I think a year before, but I think I didn't switch it myself, but I had to switch it for something else.
Oh, so you started in it and then you needed to leave. Okay, well, it's nice that you were able to navigate back. What grade are you in?
I'm in grade 12.
Grade 12, so you're almost done then.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else to add about this class? I know in previous conversations with other students, we've talked about the importance of these types of classes and urging the government to consider more environmentally based classes in the high school programs. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say it's important because it shows us that like our world around us matters, like the plants around us, the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of it more,
Mm-hmm.
like not destroy it, like with like oils and factories and carbon. Like to try and take more care of the planet around us.
Absolutely, it's made you a little bit more aware of some of the issues that exist out there, right?
Yeah.
So then when you turn 18 and you're eligible to vote, you're going to go vote in the provincial and the federal elections for environmental issues, maybe.
Yeah.
You're a little bit more aware now as you enter adulthood, which is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate your participation.
Tollgate Tech, you guys are so cool. I'm so grateful that you came to chat with me. It's a little bit of a daunting task to sit down in front of our very techie looking microphones and speak to me, but you guys rocked it. Also, a special shout out to Matt, our editor, who took a bunch of random files and smooshed them together. I was a little bit nervous on how we were going to put something like this together, and it ended up working out. Also, thank you to Miss Bromhall as well for allowing us to come into your space. Miss Bromhall is the instructor for these programs, and Equal Ground's been able to do some really cool things with various classes that Miss Bromhall teaches. So very grateful to you, and you're going to be hearing from Miss Bromhall in the next episode. Thank you again to the City of Brantford and the Brant Community Foundation for funding this podcast. And also a big thank you to our board of directors for letting me run with this project. The Community Garden podcast is administered by Equal Ground Community Gardens, and you can view this episode's show notes at the communitygardenpodcast.ca. There were a lot of things mentioned in this episode. A good chunk of them are in the show notes. Podcast production and editing is by Matt Wilfred at Nuthatch Consulting, and you can get in touch with Matt at nuthatchconsulting@gmail.com. And thank you to our lovely podcast committee, Paulina, Charlene, and Kat, for all your hard work. I appreciate you. Please consider following, subscribing, rating, reviewing, whatever it is that your podcast platform allows you to do to help us reach more people. And you can follow Equal Ground on Facebook at Equal Ground Community Gardens. And you can also join our Facebook support group at the same name. And you can find us on Instagram at equal_ground. And you can learn more about our organization at www.egcgbrant.ca. And finally, if you would like to be on this podcast as a guest, you can email podcast@egcgbrant.ca, or you can visit the show notes. I'm telling you, I'm fun to talk with. I'll yap all day. I'm such a yapper. If you're a yapper, we'll get along, I promise. You're a yapper and you like soil or you like plants, we're going to get along, and it's going to be a great conversation. I'm going to love it. So send me an email. Okay, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.